Well, the Supreme Court ending its term with two politically charged rulings. Justices temporarily blocking the president's citizenship question for the 2020 census. And then in a second ruling, the court deciding that federal judge cannot police partisan gerrymandering, which, of course, is the practice of redrawing electoral boundaries for political gain. For more on this, I'm joined by Richard St. Paul, the defense attorney, member of the Republican Trial Lawyers Association, and Rachel Self, who is a trial attorney. Welcome both. Richard, Thank you. Justice Roberts really has surprised people, angered a lot of the conservatives were siding for the liberals on some of these issues, especially when it comes to the census issue.
Well, look, what people don't understand is that the court has always had a balance in it. And Justice Roberts is serving as that balance for the court. So regardless of what what president elected, appointed the potential jurist candidate to the Supreme Court, they don't act as they are conservative or a liberal. They act in the best light of the jurisprudence of the day. And that's what's important, because we don't want somebody acting on a political agenda. We want them to act under the law. And that's what Justice Roberts is doing.
You know, Rachel, this is what the Chief Justice put out a statement past November. He said, quote, "We do not have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges or Clinton judges. What we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges doing their level best to do equal right to those who are appearing before them." So what would you say to people who are just so angered at some of these rulings, no matter which way they go?
Well, I think we should tell them is that we need to be grateful for the separation of powers. And we need to remember that politics actually has no place in a court of law. The job of these justices is to be upholding the law and interpreting the law and the Constitution. And this is one of the real protections that we have in this country that makes our country so great. Chief Justice Roberts considers himself a guardian of the court as Chief Justice. And I think that when people expect the justices, because they were appointed by Republican presidents or by Democratic presidents, to follow along that line, they're forgetting the very important principle of what our country was based on and what's in the Constitution, that politics does not belong in the courtroom.
Well, you know, a lot of people think politics is in the courtroom. I mean, can you comment about that? And then they'll say, well, it'll turn out to be like another David Souter, Rachel.
No, I mean, here's the thing, okay? This decision didn't go through because it didn't pass the smell test. It didn't pass the smell with regard to the census. It didn't pass the smell test for the undercourts. It didn't pass the smell test for SCOTUS. And what SCOTUS did was it sent it back to the undercourt and it said, listen, we need further proceedings to happen in this case. But if you look at what happened in the gerrymandering case, conservatives really shouldn't be losing the bigger picture here. The gerrymandering case allows Republican state houses all across the nation to now redraw the lines however they want. So in the grand scheme of things, the census question is almost a minor issue at this point, because the gerrymandering went through and Republican state houses are going to, throughout the nation, be able to draw the lines however they want to without concern of being sued. So I think that it's a perfect example of kind of dog whistling that people are so up in arms about this, because if you look and you play chess instead of checkers, this really doesn't hurt anything too badly for an already very Republican setup that we have right now. Well, and it is a blow to the Democrats to have the gerrymandering ruling.
Well, you know, Richard, others would say it's a boon for the Democrats in Democratic states where the legislature draws the districts, and that it will help, you know, Democrats at the same time. Look, also politicians, we know it all. Politicians basically try to tilt the whole game to themselves for the status quo, I think, and for incumbency. So many would say that would be a blow for the rest of us.
No, look, but the bottom line is this. The legislators are in charge of redistricting. There is no constitutional law that political gerrymandering violates, and that's the bottom line. That politicians can play with political parties all day and have constitutional protections to do it. It's up to the legislator. It's their job. It's not the Supreme Court's job to draw lines among party lines. And so every now and then you get a sway of people who in a Republican state may decide to vote Democrat. We see that happen all the time, or in a Democratic state decide to vote Republican. So I think the court got this decision right, and the political parties land where they are, which are that they can continue to politically gerrymander, and that is not unconstitutional, and it doesn't hurt the one person, one vote right.
Richard, quickly, you think that Justice Roberts will surprise us again?
Absolutely.
I do.
Richard first.
I do, because we hear the DACA decision that's coming up in October when the Supreme Court is next in term, and I think he'll surprise us again with the DACA decision that would uphold the current status quo of DACA.
Rachel?
My prediction.
Okay.
I think that's entirely possible. I think that with DACA, what we're looking at is an arbitrary and capricious termination of a program. At least that's what the undercourts have been saying. And so the Supreme Court in this case is probably going to have a pretty difficult time, I think, with the current setup. I wouldn't be surprised if Justice Roberts ruled in favor of DACA, because you really can't ignore the wastefulness and the cruelty of deporting some incredibly bright young individuals back to a country that they've never known as home. And I think that what they're going to be doing is looking at how this actually affects us as a nation, and particularly with regard to these young people who consider themselves more American than a lot of Americans that we know.
All right, that'll be the last word. I do have a ruling, because I'm the justice here. This is a summer Sunday. Richards, you're in a city, Rachel, you're by the beach. I rule for the beach.
I am.
Okay.
I am. You guys should come and visit me here.
Lucky you, Rachel.
Thank you both.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I join
Have
that
a great
opinion.
day.